Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time once again for your weekly wrap-up, and this week we're going to be talking about the challenges of remote learning and working. As high-tech as we are, there are still some issues to work out, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. So we're going to begin with some of the challenges and some opportunities related to remote learning first. And one of the issues that you have with remote learning is that it's different based on the age group. So many colleges and universities have been doing remote learning for the better part of a decade already. In fact, some of you watching may have received a degree from a university where you never actually had to set foot on campus. But at the early childhood level, it's very different because so much of early childhood education is social development, which only can happen when you're around other kids in a classroom away from mom and dad. And that's one of the challenges that many school districts are facing at the moment. Some of our ISPs are stepping up, thankfully, to make things a little bit easier. Comcast and a number of other internet service providers are reducing fees. They're removing data caps, so if you do have to do a lot of streaming, that's not going to impact you as much. Comcast also has a plan for low-income families. They're going to be giving that plan away for free for the next 2 months or so, and they're also increasing speeds of that plan too. So it's been good to see Comcast stepping up here. Sometimes the regional monopoly can do a little bit of good, which they're doing here. And if you want to play your Google Stadia games too, you can benefit from that. Comcast is also allowing you access to their free Wi-Fi hotspots for 60 days, even if you're not a customer. So there's a lot going on right now to kind of more equitably bring bandwidth to people, because this is one of the concerns that public educators have, is that not every kid has access to the network. And equity in public education is key. And if you live in a portion of town that maybe doesn't have access to Comcast service, those kids in that section of town are going to be on unequal footing with kids in town that do. And you run into a situation where your school is really unable to equitably provide this educational service and may not be able to do remote learning for the duration of time that the school is closed. And that's some of the issues that a lot of school districts are dealing with right now. Now, where I live, we have a one-to-one Chromebook program in our schools. So a lot of kids are able to bring home a Chromebook from the school, irrespective of their income level. And this is a great way to make sure that every kid is working on the same technology. But again, if the kid doesn't have access to the same broadband as other kids, there's still an inequity problem that your school district has to deal with. Here's another equity issue related to special education. In the United States, special education is a federal mandate, and as such, schools need to provide essentially the least restrictive educational environment for students with special needs. And every child that is eligible for special education services has an individualized plan that's put together. And if the school system is providing education remotely, those special education students need to be given the accommodations that they would have within the building. And if the school district is unable to send staff to that child's house, for example, or provide all of the different resources that that child needs in the school, you have an inequity problem. And the federal government just recently sent out some guidelines related to remote learning and special education for districts to keep in mind here. So there's a lot of factors here that make something as simple as doing a live stream actually much more complicated for school districts. And if you've been frustrated as to what's going on in your local district, this is the kind of stuff they're dealing with, trying to figure out a way to offer things remotely. And you might have a situation where they won't be able to, given some of these equity concerns. Another problem you have to deal with is bandwidth. So let's say we could get all the equity issues aside. We're going to live stream every teacher in every classroom to their students for an hour or two a day. You have to think about the upstream bandwidth involved with that. So this is the YouTube recommendations for upstream bandwidth for live streaming. And at 720p, they recommend that you have a connection that can deliver about 1.5 megabits to 4 megabits. And I think for most cases, 2 is probably the right number. Partly because if you are teaching a class, you're going to have words and numbers on screen, and you want kids to be able to read that sufficiently. If you've got low resolution, it's going to be harder to read. If you have a heavily compressed image, that might create some reading issues. So you've got a bandwidth issue here, and 2 megabits is not a lot, but when you scale it up to 20 classrooms all doing it at the same time in a small elementary school, you can get a feel for some of the challenges there too. And not every school has 40 megabits worth of upstream bandwidth available to them either, because these ISPs really focus on downstream speed, which is good for most of what education might need when the kids are in the school. To get data out at scale certainly requires a lot more bandwidth. And then on the extracurricular front, you've got copyright issues related to performances like chorus concerts, band concerts, and musical theater performances. So Laura Benanti here, who's a Broadway star, asked high school students who had their shows canceled to do a performance on video and tag Sunshine songs across social media so that people could see them perform. And there's a lot of great performances here. The problem, though, is that a lot of high schools are restricted from live streaming these shows. So they could perhaps, with a small group, do the performance for a live stream to an empty auditorium. They're unable to do that because the rights holders won't allow live streaming, even under the current circumstances. So Music Theater International here is where a lot of high schools license their performances from. So they pay a fee to MTI here, and then the rights holders are reimbursed from them. And on their website, they do have some provisions for shows to be live streamed under the current circumstances. But if you note here in italics, many shows have not permitted the use of live streaming, even under the current circumstances, which is really terrible for these kids that they can't do their performances, and they will never be able to do them until these rights are released, because the school district could have some legal liabilities here. Disney deserves a lot of credit because it looks like most of their shows are currently available for this special license to live stream, but a lot of other rights holders haven't released MTI, and therefore MTI is not allowing these kids to do these live streams, which I think is terrible. So hopefully this corrects itself in the weeks to come here, but right now there's a lot of restrictions on even doing remote performances for the community. And then, of course, you have your local school budget process. And as many of you know, I'm the chairman of my local school board. And at this time of the year, we're usually working really hard to get our budget put together. That often involves a number of public meetings. And because I'm in New England, we pass our budgets the way we've been doing it since before the founding of the Republic here, and that everybody piles into town hall and the budget's presented to the town and we all raise our hands and vote yay or nay, and the budget moves forward for the following year. It's a great tradition here in New England for people to get together and have a lot of input into the process as it rolls along. And this is really hampering the ability to get that budget process done because we can't hold the meetings right now. So it looks like in Connecticut here, they're going to start providing some flexibility for how we can hold those meetings. But again, we have to be able to make sure that everyone who wants to have a say in this budget will have that say. And there's a lot of complexities around that as well. So things are really tricky. And the private sector is also having some difficulty. And even though people have been working from home remotely for some time now, there are positions that are really hypercritical, like power infrastructure and intelligence agencies, where a lot of effort has been made to air gap critical systems from the rest of the world. You got to be there in person to operate it because they've made it hard to get in from the outside to do those tasks. And now we've got people that could work from home but can't because of the security measures that are put in place. So now you're looking at balancing the public health issues versus the fact that your infrastructure could be at risk if you lighten up the security. There's a great analysis in Ars Technica this week that's definitely worth taking a look at on that topic. Now, I want to know what you think about all of this. I did ask on my Facebook group this week, what challenges are you facing learning or working remotely? And I'm also curious, when was the last time you took a shower if you're working from home? I have to get dressed every time I work because I'm down here on camera. But I'll tell you what, when I worked from home for another job, there were days where I just never got out of my pajamas. But I did hear a lot of good feedback from folks here. So Joshua Dollard says, while I can work from home for part of his job, large project files make it really difficult to do his job all the time from home. And this is certainly an issue if you're dealing with a lot of video like I do. That can present some problems, especially when you have slower upstream speeds. I did do a video, which I'll put down below in the master playlist, on doing remote Final Cut Pro editing. And that's what we're doing here over the next month or so while this thing is playing out. So I'm able to actually send my full video projects to Jake to edit remotely, but it's not something that every industry can do, and Josh here certainly has some challenges related to those big project files. Charlie Hall works in IT, and they have a couple thousand users that they support, but a lot of them were not prepared to be working remotely as their computer was not working properly for that home use. And that, of course, really puts a strain on support departments. And if you have to go to somebody's house to deal with it, that, of course, raises some public health issues now, too. So that's a challenge, and I'm sure a lot of you who work in IT can relate to that problem. I have another one that wrote in that wanted to keep everything anonymous here, but in his company, they had to buy 20 laptops to send home with people because their security policy does not allow people to use their own equipment. So at least they have everyone on the same machine, but they had to do a significant investment in time and money to get everybody ready for remote work. So there you go. There's another private sector challenge there. And then, of course, we have our first responders and retail workers who have to be at work. So Stephanie and Travis here both work in retail, and they are obsessively sanitizing themselves, which I hope they do. And of course, the stores are packed right now with people trying to get provisions and supplies. So I wish them well and good health, and definitely keep washing those hands. But there are some folks that simply cannot work from home. And I really want to extend my appreciation for the retail workers who are out there making sure we have enough food to eat, to all the people out in that supply chain making sure the food and the fuel keeps flowing our way, and also, of course, to our first responders who are out there with the public and putting themselves at risk as well. And lastly, I want to thank everyone in the medical community, especially the doctors, the nurses, and all of the staff that support them in hospitals throughout the world. Because we're really in kind of an unprecedented moment right now, at least in the last 120 years or so. And the work that they're doing to try to keep people healthy is going to save a lot of lives when this is all over. And I want to thank everyone who's watching from a hospital right now, taking a short break for all of the efforts that they're doing. It's definitely appreciated. So a lot of people to be thinking about as we are all working from home here. Tom Mills and Roman Rivers have some good points on what happens after you've been working from home for a while. I can tell you that I am probably completely unemployable at this point because I love having the flexibility just to come down to my office here and start working and be close to my family and everything else. It's a pretty good lifestyle if you can get used to not having people around you all the time while you're working. I sometimes have people here, but mostly I'm talking to you through this camera, but it looks like Tom and Roman really are enjoying it. And not everyone who works from home likes to do it, so sometimes you might want to look at a co-working space once all this crazy separation stuff ends, but there you go. There's some good, happy thoughts about home working there. And then Ryan Beer is someone who I can certainly relate to because all of the schools are closed where he is. He's got 2 young kids at home like I do, and he says it makes meetings a very fun adventure when they decide to fight and throw temper tantrums. And mine were tossing all sorts of stuff around while I was on a pretty important conference call last night, so I feel your pain on that one. I also think about that guy who was on the BBC giving a very serious interview, and the kid barges in, and then the kid on the walker comes in, and then his wife has to grab the kids and throw them out of the room. I think there's going to be a lot of that going on over the next month or so, and certainly being close to your family has its benefits and also has its challenges. Now, this week's wrap-up is being brought to you by our supporters, and we have a new supporter to thank, Feral Sparky, who became a new YouTube member. And if you want to support the channel, you can. You can go to Lon.TV/support and make a monthly or a one-time contribution to the channel. And of course, you can join via the YouTube join button that you see right down below. And I want to thank everyone for their support this week and everyone who's been supporting the channel on an ongoing basis too, and all of you who watch on a regular basis, because all of those things equal channel growth, and your support is greatly appreciated. We also updated the end credits finally. You can see that update rolling after this video concludes. We had a bunch of live streams this week. I did one with Smoke Monster the other day, who's one of my favorite folks from the retro gaming community. You can see that one linked down below in the master playlist. We also did a live stream on setting up some low-cost Yi security cameras. I hope to have a review of those coming up soon. And then we also did some testing of VR games on my new 2080 Ti setup. Because I wanted to do a video about that card and needed some more footage. So we live streamed all of that experimentation. That was kind of fun. Nothing on the extras channel this week, but I do have some videos planned for that. And then on the main channel, we had that 2080 Ti review. It's so much fun to have a video card that I don't have to do any settings on. I just set everything to maximum and it just works at 4K. It's amazing. And I'll probably get about 6 months of that before something better comes along, but I am quite pleased. I've never owned the top-of-the-line graphics card before, and now I do, so I'm really psyched about that. I also did a comparison of the DJI Mavic Air to the Mavic Mini. I've had both now for a while and thought I would do a little video to help people figure out which one they need. And then we reviewed a really great value in a gaming laptop, the Asus TUF, which starts at around $649, and it's got a GPU and a Ryzen CPU, and it performed quite well. It's even got a 120 hertz display, and you can see more about that laptop down below in the master playlist. Now this week I've got a bunch of things on the docket. We'll see what I get to. I did shoot already this video for the very low-priced Motul laptop that you can find at Walmart here throughout the US. It sells typically for about $249 to $299. Unfortunately, there are some gotchas with it. If you watch my unboxing that I did about a week ago, you'll hear more about that. And of course, we'll cover it in the full review. Hope to do some more on those Yi cameras. And I still have that Wise lock that I have to get around to installing. And now that I've got a lot of time in my hands in the house, I will probably start working on that lock this week as well. And I might have some new Mocha adapters to talk about. I'm trying to get enough of them in to do a proper demo, and I'll let you know when those arrive, but these will be the new Mocha 2.5 adapters, and you might see that pop up this week as well. If you want to be notified every time I go live, and I go live often these days, you can click on the bell to get a notification as to when we do that. We have a bunch of other channels you can find me on, including that extras channel for unboxings and supplementary content. We have the podcast feed, which is now on Spotify too, so you can listen to an audio version of this show. We also have my Amazon shop that you can see there at the bottom, and if you want to follow me on Amazon, where I go live quite a bit as well, you can do that right there. We have our email list still, which is very infrequent. We only send out an email when we've got something big going on. We've got the Facebook group, which is close to 900 members, where I get a lot of great feedback for the show. And then we've got my store, where I sell previously used items that you can buy at a lower than new price. And a lot of these are things that I bought to review here on the channel and am now getting rid of. So go ahead and check it out at Lon.TV/store. And if you want an email alert every time I add something, you can click on that link there to get on that list. And I know a lot of you are asking about my 1080 Ti card. I'm going to hold on to that. I'm sorry, my regular 1080 card, not the Ti. I'm going to be holding on to that old 1080 card because I'm going to be building out another production computer, and we're going to use that card for that. So unfortunately, that one's not for sale, but I'll look around and back and see if I do have any GPUs that I need to get rid of, because I've got a few back there. That's going to do it for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay healthy and wash those hands, everybody. I'd love to get some more feedback from you as to what you would like to see. I've got plenty of time to produce content over the next 2 weeks or so, so let me know down in the comments below, and thank you all very much for watching. And again, a special thank you to everyone that has to be at work trying to keep things going for all of us that are stuck at home. Very much appreciate everything you're doing for us. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Rick Vestudo, Chris Allegretta, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.